Welcome to Global Citizen Life. Today on the podcast, we have Ari. Ari, thank you very much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me, Sally.
So, you have lived in four different countries, and the big question is why? Why four?
I don't know. There's many reasons. One of them was to follow love. One of them was to follow my career. Another one was to follow my studies. And another one was trying to get back to my roots. So, yeah, that's the main four reasons for those four countries.
I mean, those are great reasons. And, everybody has their own why, right? And many people can relate to one of those or more of those four that you said. Other people have other reasons as well. I mean, for me, my first move abroad, I just really needed a change. And I was so tired of Canadian winters that I am now at a place where when I left Canada, I just said, I never want to live in a place that has cold winters. And that's every time I move, I've moved several times. It's one of those things for me. At Christmas time, I like the snow and I don't mind it being cold, but I can go places. I can go to the markets in Germany or Vienna or head back to Canada and be in cold for a couple weeks. But I just don't want to live in it anymore.
Yeah, I feel your pain. I've lived one of those countries was Finland.
Oh,
So it's a huge contrast then compared to where I am here in Spain, or anywhere else, in fact. So yeah, I definitely feel your pain. The cold, the dark weather is not for me. I kind of promised myself after Finland, I was like, if I move anywhere in the world, it has to have palm trees. So for me, that's kind of like a
mhm.
sign that this is
Yep.
a place where the climate is tolerable. So
Hmm.
yeah, anywhere I go, palm trees.
Palm trees. Well, and it's like it really is important when I talk with people about why do you want to move abroad? What are the reasons? And as we touched on that, there is a variety. And it is what are we looking for? And I always say to people, make a list of everything you want. Like the dreams of everything of, your ideal place, how your lifestyle would be, what is your day-to-day life? Because we do need to consider those things. And then from there, take out the ones that are like, they're not really that important, and then you make your list smaller. And then from that, you look at that kind of second list, and then you take out those, what we call those non negotiables, those things that are really, really important to you. And and it's not just like it is a full lifestyle of the weather you want, but more so too is what activities and hobbies and things do you want? Because when we're on YouTube and different blogs and websites and stuff, let's be honest, every country in the world looks amazing. Like even Finland during the summertime, I'm sure looks beautiful. And
Actually, it does
you
absolutely.
know, yeah, and Canada during the summertime, it's beautiful and it's great. And so we really need to think about what activities, hobbies, things that we want to help us define where we're going. Now, obviously, caveat to that is if we may be a little bit more flexible if we're following for love. Sometimes if we're going for work, we might have to be like, okay, I'm don't really want to be here, but I'll do it for 1, 3, 5 years because it's a stepping stone for my career. And of course there are those types of things. But in the countries that you've lived, what have been some of your biggest challenges with moving internationally?
I think I should start with Finland since we started talking about it. It was the first country I moved to. I studied there, so it was two reasons. It was the first reason was obviously my uni, my studies, but the other reason was trying to go like being curious about going somewhere that that's completely different than anything I'm used to.
Mm.
And Finland checked a lot of those boxes for me. So I didn't really care so much about the weather when I was young. I was like, in the end of the day, I wanted to go somewhere new and different. And I mean, it came with so many different challenges that I'm not used to. One of them was just the way how the Finns are. Now, Finnish people, and I'm sure the Canadians are pretty similar too. They need space, a lot of space.
Well, we're just
uh,
used to it. Like we're just
yes,
used to it. So it's normal for us to have space.
makes sense. And Finland is a big country. There's maybe like around 5 million people living there, at least when I was there. So there's a lot of space. It's kind of concentrated in one big city, but this also reflects on social norms, right? So
Mhm.
people have just a big bubble, and you need a lot of time and a lot of effort, a lot of patience to get closer to that bubble, which is not something that I'm used to. I'm from Morocco, by the way, so I'm from the Mediterranean. That's where my origins are. So we express our with our hands. We're loud. We like to kind of like to bring everybody closer. We meet people first time. We give them a hug. Like we're very warm
Mhm.
compared to people from the north. And I think it could be something to do with the sun or the warmth or the weather. Actually, it could be something. There is some sort of relation there. I don't know if it's been explored like scientifically or anything. But that was a big challenge for me. And I remember, if I could share a small story, this is my first week in Finland, and I stayed there for actually. Oh, I'm lying. So I stayed there for a few weeks first. So during the end of the summer, and now school year starts around September. And that first week of September already started snowing. And I'm like, whoa, okay. So, and I'm like, I've never really seen snow that much in my entire life. And like, I mean, it was up to my ankles and it just got like pouring snow. And I'm like, whoa, this is amazing. Like, it's magical for me. So, and at this point, I'm like, I'm just really enjoying it. And I go and I take a bus because I'm like, I can't take my bicycle to school because obviously, so I'm like, I'm probably going to break a neck or something. So I might as well get a bus. I go to the bus stop and there's, you know how they are. There's like a little kind of cabin where you're just kind of covered, and
Mhm.
I'm sitting there and I'm first, so I'm just gonna go and sit there. It's snowing, right? So and then people started coming. I see the first person comes and I mean, obviously it's snowing like crazy. So, and it is just a small space. I mean, you can sit
Yep.
like 3 people or 4 people who sit there. But he comes in and he just kind of like looks at me like for like a fraction of a second and he just stays like outside of the space, right? And I'm like,
Mhm.
oh, okay. Like, I don't know, maybe this is just I didn't really pay attention too much to it. And so another person comes and he goes to the opposite side of the space where I'm
Mhm.
sitting and he just stands there. And I'm like, is something wrong with me? Like, I need to look at my face. I open my phone. I'm like checking the camera, like, what is going on? And then a few minutes later, this other girl shows up and she's like going even beyond the other guy, for like a few meters away. I'm like, the hell? So at this point, I still didn't really get it, and it took me quite a while to actually understand what was going on. And only after I got into the bus. So the bus has 2 seats and then 1 seat, 2 seats, 1 seat, 2 seats, 1 seat. This
Mhm.
is how it's kind of. And so most of the 2 seats were free in that row. No, no, hold on. No. So one in the 2 seats, there was only like one person, one person, one person, 1%. And in the other seat, one person, 1%. And then everybody else was just standing. I'm like, this is again very strange. Like, why is this happening? So I'm like, okay, I just go and stand. I'm like, let's just do the Romans do. So I go and stand on the bus and I go to school. And then I started asking everyone. So I'm like, guys, what happened? Like this happened to me. And then like people are not even like coming close. Like I don't know what's going on. Like, is it my face? Is it my curly hair? Like, what's going on? Explain. They're like, actually just the way it is here. And you will figure it out. And I actually eventually did. But that was one of the biggest challenges for me is to kind of like calm down. And you
Mhm.
can notice with the way I'm speaking here, I'm very expressive, right? So I had to kind of just slow it down. Don't use too much emotions at first. But I was super surprised with the Finns in Finland. I made great friends, great relationships. But the moment you're their friend, you are a true friend, and like it's just kind of you really get to know them truly. They share secrets, like yeah, it's very very different kind of dynamic in social relationships and so on. But yeah, that was the biggest challenge I've had.
I bet. And I mean, it's not something that you can read about or you watch in videos and things like that. Like there's certain cultural things that unless you're there, you don't know. You don't get it. Or you're just even not aware of it.
Mm, absolutely, absolutely. You have to kind of get sucked in into the
Mhm.
culture outside. And I think that you raised a really good point about travel earlier, that when you're traveling just for a vacation, right, you go into that resort, you really don't mingle, you don't get to know what's actually going on in a country or a culture, as if when you live there, like go study there, take the bus, like public transport, really get to see how things happen, and you will notice this, there are differences out there that make each place very unique.
Absolutely. And it is. I always say to people there really is a difference between being on vacation, traveling, and living somewhere. Now there's bits that of course can overlap depending upon how people travel and are on vacation, but generally when we're on vacation, I mean we're going to the touristy spots, we're eating in the touristy spots. Like we're not, and the downfall with a lot of travel, and we're seeing it more and more now, where tourism is becoming a big problem in a lot of countries. There's mass tourism. I mean, even recently, I was reading an article that last year Spain had 94 million tourists visit the country. They're on track to hit 110 million in the next few years. Um, and there's problems with it. Like in theory, people are like, oh, great. It's yes, there's job creation and things like that. But then there's also a lot of problems because, well, I'll be honest, there's good tourists and there's bad tourists in every country, and not just going to Spain. I mean,
For
there
sure. Yeah.
in every country. And I think there is a lack of cultural respect that and not intentionally, some intentionally, but I think a lot is not intentional. But when we go somewhere and that people think, I'm used to how things are at home, and they behave and act how they would in their home country, but realizing that some of those things are offensive in another country.
Mhm.
Or even they would just be like a little nervous or standoffish. Like if you at that bus stop and you just start walking up and like, hey, I'm new here, and you start hugging people, they'd be totally freaked out because they'd be
For
like,
sure.
what is this guy doing? He's crazy. Right. And
Absolutely.
with no bad intent. So it really is that, we need to get to know a culture and to experience it, but kind of take a step back and learn about it and go, especially if we're going to be moving. There's a little more lax and leeway with being on vacation. Again, you still need to be respectful, um, but you don't realize what it's really like until you're there for several weeks.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think my upbringing had a big effect on this too, because I moved a lot when I was growing up. My Because of my dad's job, we had like about, I think like around 12 homes by the time I was like 18, about 18 years old. So this meant that I had to get used to new people, new schools, make new friends, and just kind of like adapt.
Mhm.
And I think that's what kind of made me more open to people, like because I learned that people are different, and I
Mm.
had zero expectations from anybody. And so I will just kind of try and find my way in. I always have. but at the same time, I don't expect them to behave or act a certain way. So, and I get your point, 'cause especially here in Spain, there's a large community of British people living in the south of Spain where I am, and they are expats, so they live here. They've been here for a long time. They keep complaining about British people coming to visit Spain because they expect to have the same kind of service, same kind of like culture as they have back home. And it's mainly because I get your point. There's a big difference between a tourist and a traveler, and somebody also that lives. Those are three different kinds of people, and I really wish that more and more of I think especially the travel industry has a big effect on this. So if more and more of these companies just adds little bits on that packaged kind of travel experience, it would really help people to, first of all, experience something amazing in a country because they really get to understand the culture, and they can see something completely new from before, like me on that bus stop. Or and also at the same time they see, like, it's important to see those top 10 things, those highlights or the
Mm,
spotlights
of
in the
course.
country, but combine it with some more culture, combine it with
Mm.
meet the locals. I think there's no other better way to do this than just go and meet with people from that country, because they know their country best, and they can show you the real parts, especially of those destinations.
And I mean, one of the biggest things that I learned from my moving abroad, I've lived in, including Canada, I've lived in 5 countries now, is like my opinion, my thoughts, my beliefs, they're just mine. They're not right. They're not wrong. They're just mine from how I lived, how I was raised, my parents' thoughts and grandparents' thoughts, and my teachers and my friends and my personal experiences. And I think one thing with travel is, I mean, people want to go, lots of times think, I want to go because I want to see these amazing sights and I want to experience this great weather. I want to go skiing, snowboarding on the beach, like whatever those things are,
Mm,
and seeing these beautiful buildings, architecture, design around the world, because I mean, the world is beautiful. But we also have to think that just because I have an opinion of how something, quote, should be done, and I'm really trying to delete that word from my vocabulary because it's not a word that really makes sense. Like nobody
mm,
should or shouldn't. It shouldn't be done. But just because I'm used to things being done a certain way doesn't mean it's the right way. Doesn't mean it's the best way. It's just what I'm used to. And when we're able to have conversations with people and say, why do you do things this way? Why do you do that? Why do you think that? Why do you believe that? And then to have them to say and have a conversation about it instead of that's the way it is, to say, well, because of this or because of that, then we can be more open and understanding and realize, oh, and sometimes those things make more sense than what we do or the way that we do things. And I think it's very ironic too that so many people say, well, I want to move abroad because I want a slower pace of life. I want to be more relaxed. I want to enjoy life more. And then they'll move to Costa Rica or Spain. And then they get mad in Spain because everything is closed in the
mm.
afternoons and shops are closed on Sunday. In Spain, the service isn't like there at the snap of a finger. But it's like, but this is what you wanted, and now you're complaining about it. Like that's not right.
Yeah. Mm. Yeah, yeah, absolutely. I think we're and I've lived in the States, so, and also coming from Morocco, we have quite a sense of like, yeah, client is king, right? And like you go above and beyond to treat your clients like the best to the best you could, and I think it's a very good value to have, of course, but you shouldn't kind of, at least in my experience, what I learned here in Spain and in a few other countries too, like in South America, in Southeast Asia, it's very similar. is that the pace of life is just slower, and
Mhm.
that's something that everybody appreciates anyway. Everybody wants to relax and just chill and enjoy their time, but we have to keep in mind when we're kind of like expecting that level of service that, okay, I get it. You want things to happen right there and then, you want to have quality and so on. It makes sense. But at the same time, remember that you're in a place to relax and chill. So if the server doesn't like the server doesn't come with your drink in like the next 15 minutes, it's okay. Just look around, chill, take a you
Right.
know take a deep breath, talk to whoever you're with, and like it's a good balance, and we've seen this pretty much in the travel industry. When you strike that balance, this is when you actually have people
Mm.
really enjoy their time. People don't want to feel like they're you know yes, of course it's important to be organized and organize the trip on it, but leave some room for to take a deep breath or
Surprise, for just
exact for surprise, for
experience, for
being
yeah.
spontaneous and just letting things happen and just kind of going with the flow rather than, but I see both. I kind of like see both ways. Yeah, and balance is key for
Oh,
sure.
absolutely. I mean, I don't wanna be waiting for a drink for an hour, but there's always a polite way that we can wave someone down or, there's been times where it's like, then I can just, get up and go to the bar or ask the server to be like, "Hey, can you come over to the table when you get a chance?" And I also look around because I used to be a server, many years ago, but, and you can notice when people are busy. Right,
Mm,
and we have to think of, well, what's their perspective? Because I've talked to people in the industry in various countries, and a lot and it's funny coming from Canada, if your drink is almost gone, like there's maybe a quarter or so of it left or less, they come over and ask you, "Do you want another one?" And I get the point because servers are working on tips, and the
mm,
higher the bill is, the more money they make. So, not only are they increasing the bill, but they want to make sure that you're happy and you have everything that you want. But at the same time, as soon as you're done, it's kind of like in some places, it's okay, eat. Yep, here's your drink, here's your dessert. Okay, here's your bill, go, because I need the next table in. And so there
mm,
is a little bit more of that rush. Where in other countries I've been to, and I've talked to them, I'm like, like for one, some they don't work on tips, so they don't care what
yeah,
the total bill
yeah.
is because that doesn't matter to them. And the other one is they've said to me at many times is, "Well, why do I wanna keep bothering you? If you want something, you'll let me know. Like, I don't you're here with your friends, your family, whoever, like, you're having dinner, you're drinking, like, I'm not gonna come bother you. If you want something, you'll let me know."
Mm.
So, and both are completely different, and so it just comes back to neither one is right and neither one is wrong.
Yeah, 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 definitely. I go back to what I was saying earlier. It's the balance is key,
Mm,
and especially when you're in a new place in an environment where um, you want to drink or you want to go to a hotel or whatever it is. The service that you expect there, just keep in mind how the culture is of
mhm.
the people in that destination. And sometimes it's not because I don't know don't like you or something. Sometimes they're either busy or they have a way slower way of doing things, and it's completely okay.
Absolutely, and I think, and especially when we're out with friends, I think it's better to be a bit slower because, well, I mean, in my opinion anyway, we're there to enjoy time with people, right? If
Mm,
I'm going out and having dinner or just having coffee or a glass of wine or whatever, it's not really, unless I'm eating, then obviously I'm there because I'm hungry and the food, but it's also really about the time, the experience, the people that we're with, because I truly believe, like, time is our most valuable asset.
mm,
We
mhm,
have a certain amount of time here, nobody knows how much they have, and when that time is up, it's up. It doesn't matter how much money we have or don't have, how many, whatever materialistic things, like, time is the most valuable asset we have. And when we're spending it with people, we're giving them that most
Mhm.
valuable asset. So when we're, again, having coffee, dinner, whatever, spending time with people, like we really shouldn't be that concerned about when the coffee's coming or the
Yeah.
food. I mean, within reason. Obviously, I don't want to be waiting
Yeah.
forever, but it comes back to what is most important? Is it getting that thing like right now and getting upset and angry and just focused on that as opposed to we're here in this restaurant, this bar, this lounge,
Yeah.
this whatever to enjoy time, enjoy the weather, enjoy the people we're with. And I think we need to a little bit of change that, especially as we travel and as I travel more and live in different places, I try to pull those good things of life and bring them more into my life. So there's things from Canada I bring with me everywhere I go. I've lived in Costa Rica, Spain, and there's bits of things all the time that I like to bring with me. And even when I go back, when I go back to Canada, it's oh right, things work this way. I'm used to this, or it's bringing all of those things that we personally enjoy, and everybody's is different into our routine and our life, but be aware of how things work in the country we're in.
Absolutely. If I could share a story about this, and I think it's a good example in Costa Rica. Don't tell me any. I can't remember any names of where even I was, because this was maybe like 8 or 10 years ago. I think it was a while.
Mhm.
So I went to one of those surf retreats,
Okay.
yoga, meditation, and surf. I'm sure you know them.
Mhm.
And then like everything was organized. There's a whole program of what to do every day. Surf every day. You wake up, there's meditation, you do yoga, and there's like singing bowls or whatever, all sort of stuff. And then I remember one of the days. Of course, we saw the country a little bit, so we had like a few excursions and so on. But then one day is I was at the beach and I met a few surfers that were local from that town.
Mm. Mhm.
And we just started talking and so on. And then they invited me over. We're in their little camp. They gave me a drink. And then we started talking about, what they're doing pretty much on a daily basis. And then suddenly I found myself in one of their homes at their house, showing me how they're shaping the surfboards. Now, how they
Wow.
actually make the surfboards in their basement. And I'm like, this experience, I mean, there's so much. I mean, I can't talk about the details and the techniques
Mhm.
and so on, but that experience really completed everything for me when it comes to Costa Rica, because it's all about, I mean, at least from what maybe I'm stereotypical, but it's all about surfing, right? There's great surf spots and so on. And because I was there in a surf retreat,
Mhm.
having that experience to see a surfboard being shaped by locals in their home and sharing drink with them and them showing me their town and so on really completed that experience. But I would have not done that if I was just kind of like following the program and just kind of like, let's do this, let's do
Right.
this. Oh, what do I have in my itinerary? So I had to just kind of like lay down at the beach and do absolutely nothing and just go and talk to people. And this takes me back to that restaurant, having a drink and like with your friends. A good friend of mine who's from Spain, what she does normally, every time we go to a bar, every time, she would know the name of the server. She would ask them their name. Hey, what's your name?
Mhm.
And then strike a conversation with them. Usually has nothing to do with what we're drinking or what we're eating or whatever. She would just start talking to them like as if we're just talking now. So like obviously keeping in mind how much time they have,
Mhm.
but just that little gesture, we feel like we're VIPs in the bar. Seriously, and because so to kind of like finish this what we were talking about, combine the fact that you're there is a value behind waiting. Well, in fact, you're not really waiting. You're just kind of letting time pass by, like whether it's waiting for that drink or kind of like letting the universe catch up to whatever you're rushing to do. The moment you do that, things happen. Just kind of like small little, uh, I call them like magic. Magic happens usually
Mhm.
during those small periods, and something happens that makes your life much more interesting. But sometimes you're just sitting doing absolutely nothing, waiting for a bus, or waiting for the servers to bring a drink, or just laying on your surfboard at the beach. Things like that can really take your experience a whole different level. And you
Right.
would have not experienced that if you didn't just kind of accept that, okay, let's just take a deep breath, or let's look around, or let's talk to the server, or let's talk to these random servers at the beach. So yeah, I think there's definitely value behind it.
Absolutely. It's just being in the moment. We always
Mm.
think we have to have so much going on, and especially, I mean, our phones are terrible for that. We need that instant now, new hit of dopamine. And I'm the type, when I'm with people, my phone is in my purse. Like, it's not sitting on the table. It's like out of sight. Um, and if somebody calls, the only time that it's ever out is if, if I'm expecting a call or something from my family, from my
Mm.
daughter or my family, then I would have it out. But all of my friends, I even remember one time I had a friend say to me, "Oh, I've been calling you and leaving messages." And I said, "I was out for dinner with friends." And she's like, "Yeah, but I was calling." And I said, "Yeah." And I said, "When I'm with you, am I on my phone?"
Yeah.
Oh, no. And I'm like, "Because I'm not." Like, is there something so important that can only be done like this minute, or the world is going to end, or because there's nothing, very rarely is anything going to be so urgent that
Mm.
I need to leave where I'm at like this exact moment and deal with something. I mean, there's very few times when there's those type of emergencies in people's lives. And so it is. It's just stop, relax, enjoy the moment. As you said, look around, people watch.
Yeah.
Enjoy the weather, the sun, the moon, the stars, the ski hill, wherever you're at, and just be, because we are so busy. And I enjoy talking to people all the time. I talk to strangers. I travel a ton by myself, and often I will go, if I'm at a restaurant, I'll try and sit at the bar, and I'll eat at
Mm.
the bar, because then at a minimum I talk to the bartender. Hey, how's your night
Mm.
going? Whatever, chat. And most times when you're at a bar, there's a lot of other single people that are there for a variety of reasons, at the bar. Or, and if not, the bar is just a place where the way that I see it is, the bar is the place where you go when you want to talk with people. Now, if
Absolutely.
you're
Yeah.
with somebody or a group, obviously tables and stuff like that. But it's when you just want to chat and socialize, you go to the bar and just say hi. I remember when I first moved to Costa Rica, when I met a very good friend of mine. I was in the grocery store. She was doing so, she had a cart full of, like, all these beer bottles, like, they were in a case, and she was talking to the guy, and he was going in this back door and kinda out, and I was watching and watching, and I was probably watching for quite a while, and then I'm, like, looking at some yogurt that I'm thinking buy, trying to figure it out, and I'm looking at her, and I'm like, "What is she doing? What's going on?" And then finally I said to myself, "Sally, you just either need to get your yogurt and leave, or just go talk to her and ask her." And so I just said,
Yeah.
so I walk over, here I am in this grocery store. I haven't lived in Costa Rica very long, so everything is new to me. And I
Mm.
go over and I'm like, "Excuse me." And I didn't know if she spoke English or not, but I'm like, "Excuse me." And she's like, "Yes." And I said, "I'm gonna ask you a strange question, but what are you doing?" And she looks at me, she's like,
Where's the party?
"Buying beer." I'm like, "You're buying beer?" She says, "Yeah, you pay a deposit, you get the crate with all the beer, then you bring the empties back and you get new ones, and it's a lot cheaper." And I ended up talking to her for probably 30 minutes or more in the middle of the grocery store, and we became very, very good friends.
Yeah, I think the best, especially when you're traveling, the best way to when you're traveling solo. When you're traveling solo, the best way is to see a new country is to meet with other people, and other than the locals and other travelers too.
Mhm.
I feel like the best experiences that I've had abroad when I was not living, but actually just visiting a new country is just meeting with other travelers I do love traveling by myself, but I don't like traveling with my friends so much. I hope my friends are not watching this. So, and I think you
Okay.
know why. Because it's a nightmare to try and decide something. I'm very
I
decisive.
get
Well,
it.
actually, I'm
Mhm.
quite the opposite. I'm so undecisive that I had to figure out a way to be extremely decisive. And one of them is just kind of make a decision. Don't
Mm.
just be kind of like waiting around. Just decide where you want to go. And with my friends, it's like, oh, we want to do this, but we want to do this. But how about this? And what if we do this? And so we end up
It
doing
does get more
that.
complicated, yeah, and especially if you travel with people who can't do anything for themselves. Like, I
Yeah.
have a great friend, I traveled with her for 3 weeks, and we were great because she was like, "Oh, I wanna do this." I'm like, "I don't. I'm gonna go do this while you do that, and we'll meet up later and have dinner." And we can do that though, but I know people that are like, "Well, I can't do that by myself."
Yeah.
So
No.
I can
You can
understand that
relate. You
because it
can
gets
relate.
complicated then, especially when
Yeah.
there's if it's just you just do what you want whenever you want, no problem. If
Mm.
there's one other, okay, sometimes you can compromise if they don't want to, but you're not then doing everything necessarily that you want to do, because you might have to do a few things that they want to do, and there's a bit of a compromise. But then once you get that third, fourth, fifth, it's
Yeah.
yeah, no, it's
Well, at least you have friends that do travel. Like
yeah,
my friends are, you know, it takes a while. It takes a very long time to try and decide, okay, guys, let's go on this trip. Um, for me though, you know, I want to see the world. I just want to get out there. You know, at the moment I can, I just want to get out there. And so what I end up doing is just going anyway and then make them really jealous with pictures. So, and then like, okay, I travel by myself, but I always end up with people. I always end up
yes.
either with other travelers or with the locals. So, and I think, you know, the more people you know, the more your world is bigger, but not
Mhm.
from like a, just from as a place, but you know, you learn so much. Everybody is a like every person is a whole universe. You know, they had a whole life and they experienced a whole life, and so they have different perspectives, they have different stories, and so and I think it really makes up the whole experience. It's yes, the physical place, the architecture, the arts, the cities, and the nature, and so on. But at the same time, there is little universes from all those different people that you meet along the way, and I think the
Mm.
combination of that is like for me it's magical. Yeah.
Absolutely, and one of my favorite things to ask people when I meet them, like and I ask people all the time, like, I'll ask people for directions, I ask people, like, for anything, like, I have no problems asking anybody anything because I just for one, I don't wanna wander around wasting time trying to figure something out when if I can just ask, somebody can tell me, and then I never know where the conversation's gonna go.
Mm.
And what I like to do, especially with locals, um, is I ask them, where do you go eat? Where do you like to hang out?
Mm.
Where do you
It's a good
go on your
question.
days off?" Because
Yeah.
those are the things and places where they know, right?
Mm.
And, it's like, "Well, I plan on seeing these things. I know they're touristy, but I've kinda thought about maybe these couple of things. Do you think it's worth it? Or what I only have this much time. What do you think I should do?" And I've had some that just say, like, "Forget those things. Go do this. Go see that."
Mm.
And I've had times too, just even here in Montenegro a couple of years ago, I had just arrived, back. I had been living here, but I had arrived back and I stopped on the beach to have a bite to eat at a restaurant there, and there was these 2 girls sitting next to me, and, they were having a great time, and they were trying to I think they were doing a selfie or something, and I looked over and I said, "Do you want me to take a picture for you?" Like, I
Mm.
always offer all the time when I see people do it. I'm like, "Do you want me to take the picture?" Because, yeah, selfies are fine, but they're just they're not always gonna be as good as somebody because of the distance and things like that. And I ended up having a great time with them all night long. Like, I was gonna eat and go home. I was out with them, we went out to the club, we hung out, we got together the next day, and, still friends on this online to this day, and they live in Australia. So it's, like, you just never know. By just a quick, easy, "Do you want me to take a photo for you? What's your
Mm.
favorite place to go to?" Um, And I've met so many people, and as you said, I like that though, even though, and I'm living here, so I'm still meeting new people. And so it doesn't matter if you travel alone or you move to a new country alone. Chances are, like, you don't need to be alone just because you go alone.
Mm,
Like, you will meet people and everything. And that's the great thing, is it's a choice. If I want to be by myself, I can be, and I can do
mm,
things by myself. But if I want to meet people, it's very easy to go places and just strike up conversations. Now, not every conversation is going to go well, and some people are just not really interested in having conversations, but those are very few people. Most people I find are open and willing to have conversation and just chat. And even if it's just you're having coffee, and
yeah.
just chat for a while having coffee, and then I just say, "It was very nice to meet you," and I leave, I'm done, and I go on about my day or afternoon, and it was just nice to have a little bit of a chat.
Yeah, yeah. I try to be as social as possible when I'm traveling. Sometimes, most people when like people that know me, they think I'm like an extrovert because in social situations, I'm talking to everybody. I know everybody, and I'm just being as social as possible. But I definitely need some like time to recharge from that. It does kind of like drain you at some point, but obviously, when you're traveling, it's you're you have energy to go out there to begin with, so you are looking to kind of try and expand that energy to others. And what I found is that the more that I do it, the easier it becomes.
Oh, yes.
And so at first, like, you get a little anxious, especially me when I was single. I'll go and try and talk to some girls. I'm like, oh, no, I don't know what to say, especially in a bar situation. But the moment that I kept on doing it, the easier it got. And then suddenly I'm just kind of like, the conversation just flows. Um, and it's, you like most people are like, oh no, but I'm an introvert and I don't know if I'm gonna be able to make friends in a new country. They don't even speak my language or whatever. But somehow it works. And I think, I don't know, maybe I sound a little bit boohoo or whatever, but I think when you're traveling, especially when you're traveling, kind of experiencing a new place, somehow you meet the right people, or somehow you just kind of find yourself with the right people somehow. I don't know how it works, but
Well,
it just does.
because in part, what I think it is though, is because if you're traveling, you're going to places that you're interested in. Once you're there, I mean, there's so many apps now for people to use, and meetups and groups and things like that. But you're going to places and doing things that you're interested in, right? And so
Mm,
if you're hiking, even if you go by yourself, you're going to see other hikers. Right, and
mhm,
you can, "Hi, oh, how far to this?" You could strike up a short conversation. It may not last long, but you can chat a little bit, get to know more. Or if there's a spot where everybody takes a break, and you meet some other hikers, you meet them because you're doing what you like to do. If you're
mm,
into art and you go to art galleries and museums and things, if you're staring at a picture, and you can say to the person, "What do you think they were thinking when they painted that?" Or, like, whatever. And it's little things. And at first, you're right, it is really uncomfortable. And we're not really sure, and we fumble and things like that. But everything is uncomfortable when we don't do it. And
yeah,
it takes practice to get better, whether it was learning to walk, learning to tie your shoes, studying whatever industry that you're in now and doing. I mean, it's all learning. And the more we do something, the more comfortable we get with it. And then we realize, like, some people will not want to have a conversation with me. And I just think, okay, whatever. I don't know what's going on in their life. I never think like, oh, they don't like me. They think I'm weird. Maybe they do. I don't know. Maybe they're having a hard time. Maybe somebody in their family just passed. Maybe they
mm,
had a fight with their spouse. Like, it could be a million things. So I never
mm,
take it personally if they're kind of short or whatever. Maybe they're just not used to strangers coming up and talking, or they're just very, "This is the question you asked, I answered, and we're done." Fine. I mean, I don't think that, because I have no idea what's going on in their life. So I just think, Okay, they answered my question or they ignored me, whatever. Maybe they're in thought of something and I just continue on. And when you think about it in that way, like it's not about you. Like
Yeah.
however they respond to me, if it's a way that I perceive to be negative or not the way that I want, it's not about me. It's whatever's going on in their life. And the more I just keep doing and keep asking and stuff for meeting people, and sometimes I just say something stupid, and I'm just like, oh my, did that actually come out of my mouth? Like I didn't mean it that way, you know? I mean, like,
Yeah.
and it's like, oh, sorry, no, I meant blah blah blah,
It
whatever.
happens.
So
It happens to the best of us. It
of
really does.
course,
Uh, and we forget that there are like, there's so many people out there. We're so lucky. We live in a planet that has 7 billion people. So if it
right.
doesn't work with one person, just move to the next one.
And they're
Don't think
probably
about it
not,
too much. Yeah.
and they're probably not going to remember me anyway.
Yeah, exactly.
Right? Like maybe for a few, if they thought I was weird, they might have been like, that was weird. Maybe later that day, they're like, yeah, some weird girl said whatever, asked me this question today. If they even remember me hours later, but by the next day, I'm forgotten about anyway. So it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Yeah.
So Ari, you have traveled a lot, and now you're living in Spain, but your business is also related to travel as
Yeah.
well, is it not? So it's kind
Yeah.
of nice where we can have what we do for work is also part of our desire and our lifestyle.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what I do too,
Yeah.
is I help people move abroad and help with a lot of things. And it's great because it's the lifestyle that I love having, and I love helping people do what I do in their own way.
Yeah. Um, Actually, the main goal for me, and this came from even before I moved into the travel industry. It came actually when I decided to study music and work in the music industry. Um, and the main goal, or kind of like the main pull for me, was the fact that I can make the world come closer. And I think because for me the world was a big place. It was way too big, and I still think it's pretty pretty a big place. And so, I knew that I needed to somehow make the world smaller, or just feel smaller, feel closer. And so I chose music because for me music was it's something that brings people closer. Doesn't matter where you are. I'm sure you know so many musicians and bands, and like there's a lot of music that you know that I know, and we're from two completely different parts of the world, right? And
Mhm.
like I remember I was in the US and I was listening to country music that my dad would listen to when he like driving in the car. So like music just brings people together. It doesn't matter where people are from. I remember I was in Bali and same thing happened again. The same music that I was listening to in my childhood, another, like Linkin Park and all these bands from back then from high school. Same kind of music, same people from Bali who were listening to at the same time. So for me, that kind of made me go into the music industry. Anyway, fast forward 2015, Spotify showed up, completely changed the industry. I was like, uh-oh, what am I gonna do? So I started traveling, as I always do. I was in the US back then, and then I decided, okay, I'm gonna go back to my roots. I went back to Morocco, and Morocco is huge in travel, right? So, and I started connecting with some old friends, and then they connected me a few others, and they're pretty much everybody is somewhat in the tourism, travel, hospitality industry. And they're like, why don't you just start working in the travel industry? You speak really good English, you're well traveled, just go and do that. I'm like, okay. So I started working with a few companies, and then I realized that a lot of these companies are doing pretty much the same thing over and over again. And so, I started bringing new ideas, and then some of them would listen, some of them not really so much. And I'm the kind of person that like always need to kind of have something new to look up to.
Mhm.
And if I'm doing the same thing over and over again, I get bored, you know? And so
I
I'm
can
like,
relate.
I need something. Yeah. So at this stage, I was like, okay, well, I'll just start my own. And I started like doing research. I'm still working with travel companies, tour operators. Our suppliers were, activity providers, hotels, transport, everything from like hot air balloon to canyoning and cliff jumping to diving to trekking in the desert, all sort of different things. And I was like, okay, well, I know all these different suppliers, all of these companies. Might as well just start my own. So I started a DMC, destination management company, for those that don't know. And in about 120 days, and I remember this like because I started calculating the launch day. As soon as I launched the website, 120 days later, I was fully booked. I was like,
Wow.
wow, okay, I think I'm doing something right here. And all I did, Sally, was just write about what people are actually the type of questions that people are asking when they're going to Morocco. So for
Hmm.
me, that was kind of a big driver to start writing about it. And I shared my perspective, and everybody just kind of resonated. And they're like, might as well go and travel with Ari and kind of like put a package together. And so I had a lot of travel experiences. I had a lot of even events. I organized a wedding. Yeah, I did.
Wow.
I mean, I had a wedding planner, so but I did, I did kind of like, they were my clients. I organized the whole thing. Um, I had the Cooks, by the way. I don't know if you know the Cooks, the band play.
Hmm.
One of
Yeah.
It's a British band, and anyway, so um, fast forward, I realized, okay, I'm doing all of this, and like business is booming. It's 2019, I think it was the highest numbers of tourists in Morocco. It was in there, I think 20 million, something like that. Um, and I was very, very busy. And then a few months later, you know what happened? COVID. And
COVID
then I'm
hit.
like, wow, okay, damn it. This is kind of like the Spotify for music. This was the,
Right?
the Spotify for travel companies. Um, and I'm really good at making money, but I'm also really good at spending money. So
Well, I think it's a lot easier to spend money than it is to make money.
definitely. So, and at this stage, I'm kind of like thinking, okay, what am I gonna do? I'm like, well, I'm just gonna write down all my skill sets here and let's start applying for jobs or whatever. So I worked with e-commerce companies because of my marketing background. I started working with travel tech. So worked in for like 3 years with a travel tech company. I was doing nine figure with like thousands and thousands of travel businesses, helping them streamline their bookings and payments. And so I was talking to thousands and thousands of travel companies pretty much on a daily basis. And I found that the conversation was leaning more towards, they're asking me things about how a whole business operates, and I found myself giving advice outside of the scope of my work. and
Hmm.
and at this stage, even though I was in a I was a regional manager in a really good position with a travel tech company, a global company with, they had clients everywhere around the world. I realized, okay, well, I think it's time for me to start doing something different because of these conversations I'm having. And so I started, pitching some ideas to my VP of sales, to some people in the companies to see if there's attraction there. And they had different directions. So I was like, okay, well, again, I'm just gonna go and do it on my own. So and so yeah, and this is when Atlas Berg came together. And basically, all we do is consult travel companies, helping them in everything from like boosting bookings, working on their website so that it actually turns into a revenue generation machine rather than just kind of like a business card or like a brochure. It actually helps them to make money. We help to streamline a lot of their day-to-day tasks because I understand how the travel industry works. So I understand their business models and I can help with that as well. And yeah, this is kind of how it all came together. It all just of that one little goal of, yeah, I wanted to, the world was too big for me and I really wanted to just kind of like make it a little bit feel closer.
Mm.
And that kind of like what sparked, okay, I want my career to be like this. I want my everyday to, I want this type of connections to be about this. I want the, I wanted my whole life to kind of like evolve around this. And so, yeah, travel, business, my lifestyle, it all kind of just all came together.
That's great. I mean, I think it's fantastic when we're able to pull all those things together and help other people do the things that we enjoy doing and like doing in their own way, right? Because obviously with those travels, there are a bunch of different destinations and things like that, and how people like to travel, and like putting helping everything with a wedding was probably it's strange because you're
It
not in
was
the wedding planning business, but it's like, okay, well, I know somebody or can hire somebody who knows that aspect of it and do those other things. So it's interesting too how sometimes, when we think of it's a common saying that life happens for us, not to us. And when we
mm,
think about it that way of, whether you think of the Spotify, COVID, I mean that, then it's for so many people, they think, okay, well, when COVID hit, that changed everything. And some focus on the negative of it. I always try to find silver linings, but for so many people, it forced them to make changes. It
mm,
forced them to make changes they wanted to make, but were scared or
mm,
unsure or worried or, all of those things because we always think, oh, I would love to do ABC, but what if? At least now I know what this job, and I say to people, a job is a false sense of security because it could be gone next week.
mm.
And
Yeah,
we've seen that
yeah.
happen with COVID and with a variety of other things that have happened around the world at different stages and years in life. Um, so it's very interesting that when we can do what we love to do and help others do it. So I will make sure to put the links for people who want to get in touch with you in the show notes, and maybe just for people who are listening, if you can let them know where is the best place for them to contact you if they're in the travel business, they have a travel company, and they want to reach out and maybe speak with you about making some changes for themselves.
Yeah, with pleasure. So our website is atlasperk.com. So that's Atlas for the mountains, perk perk.com. There is a bunch of buttons there where you can press and book a consultation call. We offer 2 consultation calls free of charge for 30 minutes. Just for your listeners, Sally, I'm more than happy to extend this to 1 hour so they can take some insights and maybe get some, say any information. We can talk about their business model, their strategies, what's working, what's not working. I'm also on Instagram. I'm not super active, as much as I want to. But if you just search Atlas Perk, you're gonna find I post a few, little things as much as I could. I promise I'll be more active, but yeah, feel free to reach out. I'm more than happy to have a conversation.
Perfect. And again, I'll make sure the links will be in the show notes for anybody who's watching or who wants to pop over to the to see the show notes. They'll be there. So thank you very much for your time today. I really appreciate it, Ari.
Thank you so much, Sally. It was a really nice conversation. Thanks for inviting me.